All right. Welcome to the Life with Lianna podcast. Today I have a very exciting guest. So I have Troy Azzopardi. He's a men's empowerment coach. But I'll give the floor to you, Troy. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Such a weird thing to start with.
Yeah.
Just tell me about yourself.
Yeah. Well, my
It's
name's
like
yeah.
it's like how far do you want to go with that
Yeah.
one?
Yeah.
Um, I guess in terms of just to be nice and short with it, like I am a men's coach. I can do a bit of women's stuff as well if it is requested, but mostly just men. The idea behind my sort of style of coaching, again, most of the coaches they say it is personal development, which is obviously in that realm. But the idea is for me, especially in the past 6 months, I've been more on a journey to understanding myself on the deepest level and trying to uncover my true self. Because, as most people know, if you've done the work before, it's like you spend your entire life with other people's opinions and interjecting and projections and all that sort of stuff, like people telling you how to act and how to be and what to do in life. And my journey thus far has been trying to get rid of all of that, be sort of a blank, clean slate, and just really flourish in who I am as a person on the deepest level. And in that process, I've developed a program that helps other men do the exact same thing as well. So it's all about not becoming, I guess, the best version of yourself, but the truest version of yourself. So that's been my journey thus far. And that's in a nutshell what I do.
Wow. That's awesome. I'm feeling super inspired after that little deal. Yeah. Fantastic. There's so many avenues that I can go down right now. Um, yeah, yeah, that's big. That's big. And it's something that, I like you said, like when you start doing this work, I mean, I definitely resonate with it a lot. It was literally something I was thinking about this morning. I was getting coffee and I was like, I just want to spend like the next 6 months, like just deep diving into everything, like psychology, um, like shadow work, masculine, feminine
Yeah.
energy. But exactly like you said, like creating that deep relationship with yourself when you know who you are at your core, it just makes life so much easier. I mean, like, wait, you have worked with Tom before?
Yeah.
Oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah.
Really, yeah. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So, uh, something that changed the game for me was understanding my values, because then it makes like, okay, I can ask myself, is this in alignment with my values?
Yeah.
And then boom, if it's not, you don't do it. If it is, then it feels good. And then it gets rid of that. I had a lot of things in my life where I'm like, I'm doing something and it doesn't feel good. Like I can't put my finger on why. But it's only until I built that awareness that I was like, oh, okay, it makes sense now. It's not in alignment with who I am.
Yeah.
Mm.
It's like that. Yeah, because you would have just come out of Transformer recently, wouldn't you? Yeah. How good, like
Oh,
the whole values part. I was like, oh, this is so good.
yeah.
Another thing as well, that values are actionable as well. That was the big game changer for me. And like, this is something everyone can do, is list out values that you want to start working towards. Like, say, for example, if you don't currently value knowledge and learning and something you want to, you can actually put that as a value that you want to start valuing and write down action steps you can start doing to take action on that. Like, that was such a big lesson for me around values. It's like, yes, you have current values, but you can also change your values into what you want to become, which I think was a very important lesson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Like you said, like creating that blank slate. Like you don't have to stay the same throughout your whole life. You can always be changing and evolving.
Yeah.
Um, and exactly like you said, having values that you can put into action. you know, like, and that is like something that we're going to discuss is like healthy masculine energy.
Mm.
So because it's one thing to like say that I value, oh, what's an example, like love, but then okay, how do you live with that? What are
Yeah.
you doing to embody that? I
Yeah.
think that's massive.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So what is healthy masculine energy to you?
Hmm. Again, depends how deep you want to go with that one.
You can
I
go deep.
guess like if you think about just any of the, if you take, for example, if you've watched Vikings, like a healthy masculine is someone who understands themselves
Mhm.
and can work with every aspect of themselves to become a really strong leader. I think that's the biggest part, is becoming a really, really good leader in terms of masculine, and using your energy, for example, like when it comes to like being angry,
Mm.
it's not in itself negative in terms of, it just depends on how you use it, right?
Mhm.
So if you use it in a way you become a tyrant, like that is not healthy masculine when it comes to toxic. But if you use it in a way where you express it, like for example, what I do, I've recently started doing jujitsu, and
That's good.
if I've built up anger, like that really gets it out of my system. So that's a healthy way I can get that out of my system, but a healthy way which you can
Poor
use it.
partner.
What was
Yeah.
that?
Your poor partner when
Yeah.
you're
But a healthy way you can use anger is, like we were saying before, like you were kind of resisting and wanted to postpone the podcast. It's like
Mm.
you can use that sort of aggression to just send it, essentially. Like you use that aggression and take action upon things with aggression. So you can use it both ways. And I think a healthy masculine uses all of these different aspects of himself in healthy ways and is able to hold space for other people, like we'll talk about, I think, soon as well.
Mm.
It's like holding space for men as a man is healthy in a masculine way, right? It does divert into feminine depending on how you do it, but for the most part, a healthy masculine really holds space in a sort of supportive way, like a structure. So you're not really diving deep into their emotions, but you're just holding space for them. So you're like silent and listening. And that's what I think a healthy masculine sort of does as well.
Yeah. Wow, that's so interesting. That's very, very interesting. Number one, I like, because so my mom and dad separated when I was very young.
Mm.
I've never had a lot of healthy masculine like role models in my life. So it's a uh it's a joy to learn about this stuff. So thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. Um and I love that example of the Vikings.
Yeah.
Like to put that, like you can put like, oh, okay, two and two together, like it's something, yeah. Have you heard of like different like masculine archetypes? Like the
I've heard of
warrior.
them. Yeah.
Yeah,
The warrior, the
that's
king, the magician,
yeah.
and there was one more. The lover, I think, was another one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
There's a
what,
book around that.
there's a book around that.
Yeah. I've got it somewhere.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. It's the warrior, the king, the warrior, the magician, the lover.
Have you read the book?
Yeah.
Ooh. What did you resonate with? Because you have like one predominant one, but then you, how do I say, like embody
Yeah.
different ones throughout different stages of your life.
Yeah. I think at the time was the warrior. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
I haven't read it in a while.
Hmm.
Yeah, but it is a good book.
Who's that by?
It was a by.
Carl? No.
I can't remember. It's two authors, but I can't see it from here.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it does go into, like, they do reference Jung a lot, like in his archetypes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what was I gonna say? What's his name? Ragnar. He gives
Yeah,
very like warrior
yeah.
leadership.
So yeah, like so that's why I really like Vikings, because like Ragnar's story he just starts off as a farmer and becomes a warrior and then turns to a king and then does become a tyrant in some parts and then comes back as well. Like, I don't know, have you watched the whole
I
series?
think I watched just before Ragnar dies. Oh gosh, if you haven't watched it, fucking oh god, that's what someone did to me. They're like, Ragnar dies. I'm like, what? I'm like, I don't want to watch it anymore. I'm so sorry. But yeah, so I watched, what's that, like maybe season 4 up to?
I think it might have been 4, but it's good because like you watch his entire like hero's journey progress into how he becomes a king, and then he loses the great battle and then he disappears for a while, but then he comes back with such force and he's just like, you can tell that when he lost the battle he wasn't a king anymore. And he just left and then secluded himself and was alone for a while. And like my interpretation is he found himself while he was away and comes back an even stronger king. And like that first scene when he comes back and then his sons come out and then people are just looking at him like, what is he doing here? And then he gives his whole big speech on who wants to be king. And it's like, he's back. Like he's a king again, an even stronger one. I think like in that moment, like he's aggressive and he's angry, but it's in a healthy way.
Yeah.
You kind of get it. So it's like, he's so vicious and tough, but at the same time, he knows where he stands. Like he knows himself to the fullest extent.
Yeah.
And I think that's, again, really healthy masculine.
Yeah, for sure.
And with that, like a lot of people say that you can't be aggressive and you can't be, I guess, forceful in a way, but you kind of have to if you want to be a masculine, because you need that aggressiveness in your life. Otherwise, you're not really going to get too far without being aggressive.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And that's something that came up as you were talking about his anger. It's like, how do I say? What are your thoughts on, like toxic masculinity? There's another word, but I can't think of it. Is that the main, like, there's like
Wounded. Is that the one?
Wounded masculine. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that? Because I think, like, I 100% agree that we need strong men in society who aren't afraid to embody, or I don't know if that's the right word, embody their anger, but you know what I mean. Like,
just express it in a healthy way.
Express it in a healthy way. Yeah.
Well, like in terms of the wounded masculine, the toxic, like there is a lot of it, even if it doesn't seem like there is. So like we discussed, I think a few days ago with like Andrew Tate.
Yeah.
Like a lot of his stuff, like the videos that I saw, they were all just short, like 15-second clips, and it's him being sort of toxic in a way. But then I watched it's like a podcast video thing he does just before, and I sort of changed my opinion a little bit. Like I'm like, he's not actually that bad. Like he does say things that are a bit out of line.
Yeah.
In terms of like women and like a bit of like homophobia, I guess. But watching another video where it's like a full section, it's like, okay, I kind of get where he's trying to bring about a more positive and more embodied masculine, but he can kind of stray off a little bit and still be a little bit toxic. And with things in terms of toxic masculinity is essentially trying to be a tyrant. Like that is the biggest thing that I find is when men try and use their aggression in negative ways, like when it comes to like violence and abuse and all that sort of stuff, that's when it starts to get toxic. And when they try and control others, I'm trying to think of a good person who could embrace that. Well, if you think of Star Wars, have you watched Star Wars?
I have not.
Okay.
If that's all right, you can use that example.
That's all like, damn it.
Homework, do some watch.
Yeah, do some homework. But yeah, it just comes down to like, for those who have watched Star Wars, I'm trying to talk about like Anakin going into Darth Vader. You'll know what I'm talking about. It's essentially someone who just tries to control other people and doing it in a way where it just benefits them and not the other person, I believe is a big indicator of toxic.
Yeah.
Or even someone who, in a way, acts like a child and just cries out for stuff and annoys people to get what they want is also very, very toxic in that sort of way as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's a lot, I find that there's a lot of it. It's a lot of people trying to enforce their opinion and trying to make people do things that they think is right, even when it might not be. It's just their opinion. And I think in a way that's very toxic as well. But it's done in a way where it's not like you're having a conversation with someone and discussing it. It's like, I'm right, you're wrong. You have to listen to me. Like, that's very toxic behavior.
Yeah. I mean, there would be so many reasons as to why someone like adopts that way of thinking. But what do you think like the main things would be?
The main thing is that's all they know how to do. I think that's like they were most likely brought up in a scenario where they were treated like that, or they watched someone treat other people like that, and they viewed that as the only way to do whatever thing they're trying to do is. And yeah, I think that's all it comes down to. Is there's a quote, I don't know who said it, but everyone does the best they can with what they got. And that's,
I was literally just thinking
like that's what I always fall back on. Like everyone's like, it's obviously not healthy and it's not right, but it's the only thing the person knows in that moment to do.
Yeah.
And that's how I sort of view everything. Like if someone's trying to be rude or mean to me or say nasty things, I'm like, that's just how they are in this moment. Like I'm not going to judge their whole entire personality in that sort of situation, but yeah, they're just doing what they know is best. Like it's like a defense mechanism.
Yeah, for sure. And how do you then say, let's use like in a relationship sense for an example then. Say if someone, a woman is dating or has a man in her life that is, what's the word I'm going to use? Portraying these qualities. It's in one breath, I want to say that it's not our responsibility to heal or fix anyone, but there are ways that we can support the men in our lives as well. So yeah, how would you navigate that?
Yeah, it's a bit tough to like, it all just depends on the situation. Like if someone is open to working on that side of themselves, then by all means you can do that. But there are obviously some situations where the other person is just not having a bar of it and they're just going to continue being a tyrant and be very toxic. And in those situations, the best thing is to just obviously leave. But if it's something that you can sort of work on, what tends to happen is once the male becomes a tyrant or weak or wounded, the female can go into her masculine, but in a healthy way, and then support the wounded man. And at the same time, go into her divine feminine and be nurturing. And you just have it just comes down to teamwork. Like if he's not willing to work on himself, for example, with the person, then it's not going to work out. But it all comes down to, again, like this is the idea behind the program, is like finding out who you are on the deepest level and like his wounded comes from most likely trauma. Like that's how it was grown up in the household. And it comes about by releasing whatever things he has. Because everyone has some sort of trauma in their life, if they know it or not.
Yeah.
And that's how these defense mechanisms, and that's how people become very aggressive, because that's how they were brought up. Right. So it just comes down to, one, is he willing to work on himself? And two, it comes down to the depth that he wants to go in as well. And then obviously you can't do too much if you don't know how to facilitate like change, right, on a deep level, as coaches do. But if you are someone who still wants to work with, like, for example, your partner, and you don't know what to do exactly, it's just holding space for him. Like, that's ideally the best thing you can do, is just, if he is getting angry and aggressive, you know, remove yourself from the situation, let him have his own, like, obviously talk about it beforehand, but let him get his aggression out whatever way he needs to. If he needs to go for a walk, go to the gym, go for a run, whatever that is, like let him get out of that, like get out of his head. Because when you're angry, you're in your head. Get it all out of his system, and then you can come back and discuss what he felt like, what was coming up for him, and why he thinks he's doing that, and just sort of question why you think these things are coming up. And that's how you can start like really paying attention to what's inside you.
Yeah. Helping him connect the dots.
Yeah.
Because it's ultimately up to him at the end of the day.
Exactly.
So then what do you think, like, on the other side, if a man is, how do I, extremely emotional?
As in, like for example, give me an example.
Trying to think of an example. Like, this is extreme, but like they're crying all the time. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with crying. But then there, like you said, there's like that line of expression and acting like a child. Being in their like victimhood or
I get what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
I think in that sort of situation, it comes down to the man doesn't have something really powerful to aim for.
Yeah.
Because when you're in victimhood, you're blaming everyone else for your problems, and you have to sort of switch that up and become, like you would have heard in Transformers, like you become the hero of your own journey. Like, and if you're just going to keep blaming the world, that's why you're going to get emotional, because when you get too emotional, it's because you don't have power. That's the way I view it, is if you're constantly just getting over emotional over everything, you don't believe you have the power to change anything. So the first thing you do is obviously change the narrative and understand that you actually do have a lot more power than you think you do. And this is something that, again, we'll probably go into about Jordan Peterson. It's like you have to take responsibility for your life. And that's something I really resonate with. It's like, yeah, external things are going to hit you hard, and it's going to suck, and it's going to be, sometimes it's going to be there for a very long time. But the moment you understand that you have responsibility for your entire life and you can change things about your life, and that's when you can start progressing.
Yeah. Hell yeah. I need to sit back. I'm going to take, I'm so sorry. It's like really loud. I'm just going to sit back with my microphone. I'll just need, I gotta, and then, you know, sit. Oh, did it go back? Yep. Okay. What we were talking about again? Jordan. Last thing I remember, Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. So it's like if someone's being over emotional, that they believe they don't have any power over their life. But again, like Jordan Peterson says, it's like you have to assume responsibility for your life, and that's how you actually progress.
Yes. That's actually, I was watching a video of his about victimhood. And he was saying, you know, if people had a choice between a meaningful life, wait, I don't want to say this wrong, a choice between a meaningful life with lots of responsibility or a life that has no meaning and no responsibility. Like I would always choose meaningful. Like to be fulfilled is, I think, what we all want at like a deep level. Yeah. Did you see him?
No.
Oh.
I missed out on that one.
So he did come, or did he not?
I think he came last year or the year before.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like in that sort of sense, a lot of people, like ideally you'd mostly choose, you'd want a meaningful life, but a lot of people don't want to assume the responsibility. Like they would rather choose to have no responsibilities and to just do whatever they want and just slack around. But then once that happens, like internally, that's when a midlife crisis happens because you haven't assumed any responsibility for your life. But deep down, you know you should have responsibilities because you have values. And if you're not doing things that are in alignment with your values, that's when a crisis happens internally. And that's what I believe he's trying to get at.
Yeah. And that's like you were saying before, I think for men especially, they need purpose. So if we don't have a goal or something that we're working towards, then you have no direction in life. And that's not to say that you always need to be doing something and I'm definitely not about that like hustle culture either. But I think always moving forward towards something is important for anyone.
Yeah. And what I find is, yeah, like you said, you need to have direction towards something, but you don't have to always be doing something. Like you need to know you need to know that you're going down a certain path. That's all you need to know. Because I find that once people don't have a path, that's when they fall into the traps of trying to keep themselves busy with all these different things and random things that are essentially meaningless to most people. So for example, most people just like binge watch Netflix or like go out and drink and party all the time and just numb themselves because they don't want to sit in silence and hear the voices that they're not doing enough in their life.
Ooh, that's deep. I just got chills. Shit. It's true. It's true. And I'm like, I've been there before, you know, like I feel like, and I say this with love, like you're really lying to yourself if you think that going out every weekend and partying and getting blackout drunk and waking up in the morning feeling like shit, if that's serving your soul. Like you're lying to yourself. That's like, one of the things that I value is like play. So, you know, having fun and enjoying life. But I think in everything in life that you can do with balance. Yeah.
It just comes down to understanding your values. Like I don't think
values.
I don't think anyone's gonna really value getting blackout drunk. Like,
no.
Really. And again, like if people don't have their values set and understand their values and understand themselves and have a direction, then they're just gonna get stuck in that loop. And again, like the world around them's going to keep growing and growing, and they're going to get stuck in that little cycle of partying, and then they get to their 30s and they've achieved nothing because all they've done is drink and party and watch Netflix, and the world's progressed, and they're like, well, I'm still stuck 10 years ago in the same mindset, and everyone else around me has grown, and that's how you get lost, and then that's how you get depressed, and then you go through your crisis.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like looking at like what is that trying to fulfill? Like what are you really trying to get out of drinking or going out and doing those things every weekend? Like I feel like there's a need that isn't being met, whether it be connection or there is something missing. I mean, again, it probably goes back to the of just having no direction, not really knowing where you're headed or what you're working towards.
Yeah, well, it does. I believe it comes down to connection first off, because you've probably connected with people who do those exact same things, and you're like, oh, cool, let's just all go party together. So you have that sort of connection, but then you just get stuck in that loop. And again, if you don't have direction and you stay like by yourself silent for 10 minutes, you're going to have all of these thoughts come into your head that you don't like. And they're not necessarily positive or negative. They could just be like, it could be as simple as, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Like, that could be just one thought. And most people don't want anything to do with those thoughts. So they just keep themselves busy by like Netflix, or continue drinking, or go and hang out with people, or they smoke and do drugs. And they'll just do anything to keep themselves busy so they don't hear those thoughts. But it's those exact thoughts which are trying to help you progress.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, there's a reason they're coming up. And I think it definitely can be hard hearing that, but we are always choosing our pain. So you can either choose to suffer on the Sunday morning and feel like shit, or you can sit with the thought and work towards a fulfilling life that you're proud of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you can literally, if you have a thought, you can just journal on the thought. Like, if it is, for example, like if the thought comes into your head, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Write that down, and then just try and start a dialogue with yourself and discuss it. Like, okay, what am I actually doing with my life? And then you can put it in a way of a story if you want, or any other way, shape, or form which works for you. But once you start having that dialogue with yourself, that's when you can start doing making progress.
Yeah, for sure. And I think I was telling you at the start of the podcast that I find like psychology and stuff like quite interesting. And in the podcast, he said that humans only change in a state of like moving away from pain. I was like, I disagree. I think that we can choose to move towards pleasure. So like getting really clear. And if anything, I think both would be motivating, but it's always inspiring, moving towards your true potential. Like ask yourself, like, what do I actually want out of this life? I always like the impact that I want to have on the women around me. And I think having my son really put things into perspective for myself. There's just, I think that's why I resonated with the Jordan Peterson thing, because they're everything that you do has meaning. I think there's beauty in that. That might seem like a lot to carry, but if you can look at it in a way like, holy fuck, like that's fucking cool. Everything that I do matters. Like, yeah, I went off into a bit of a tangent. Did that make sense?
Yeah, it made sense.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think in terms of escaping pain or chasing pleasure or purpose, you can do either. But most people try and avoid pain because they don't have a purpose, I think, is a better way to think about it.
Yeah. Explain that.
Because if you don't have a direction to where you're going, you're just going to keep running away from things that are uncomfortable to you. Right. But if you have a purpose, that's your goal, that's your aim. You can just keep walking that path, and you're not going to worry about any pain, because any challenge that comes up, you're just going to deal with it, because the purpose, the idea, the goal is so important that nothing else matters. Whereas again, if you don't have a purpose, you don't have a goal, then the only thing you can do is try and survive. And that's survival is running away from pain. And that can be any sort of pain for you.
Yeah. Yeah. So are you saying like we kind of need both? Yeah.
Wouldn't say need both, but if it's not one, then you're doing the other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Powerful. Yeah. I'm looking at my notes. What else did we? How to hold space. What is your? I'd actually like. What is your vision for men of the world? Or women as well.
I guess overall, it comes to, again, what the whole program is about is just everyone coming together as their most authentic and true versions of themselves. Like there's no carry on from other people's bullshit. Like you haven't got all of this trauma still on your back. You're not trying to control other people. It's like everyone comes together in a safe space and connects and gets to share their love for one another. So like, for example, you would have done Transformer, and it's a whole different environment to life.
Yeah.
So my vision is to have that sort of, probably good to call like a vibe, like in sort of like inside a Transformer, but expand that around the world. Like that's sort of the idea. Like people come together and they just connect and be themselves around other people, rather than like trying to impress each other or try and talk down to one another to make yourself look better and that sort of stuff.
I love that. Where did that vision come from?
That came from my visualization that you would have done as well, which was really powerful. Like that's pretty much where it came from. Like it wasn't that exact idea, but that's what I saw, and I kind of just wrote and meditated on it a lot more, and that's sort of what kept coming up for me.
Yeah. I love that. Love that. Beautiful. And I wanted to touch on, oh no, we've kind of touched on that, haven't we? Building a relationship with yourself. It's like finding your values, finding your purpose, and then taking healthy action to move towards that.
Yeah. And you can do a bunch of other things as well. It's like the thing that I've really focused on is exploring different things, like just trying a bunch of different things. Like I said, I started doing jujitsu, going on hikes more often. I plan to go camping more often. I want to get into archery as well, and eventually want to do rock climbing, all that sort of stuff. So even just doing different activities to find what really sticks with you as well. Because if you don't try anything new, then you're just going to resort to the same repeated bullshit that you probably don't even enjoy. And I think that's another thing you can do as well. On top of that is just spend time by yourself is really important. Like no one really does that. Like no distractions, like no phones, no TV, nothing. Just sit outside or go for a walk and have zero distractions, and just allow yourself to think whatever you need to think. Like you don't have to, you don't have to necessarily sit down and meditate. Like just walking with no distractions is of itself a meditation.
For sure. I literally did that yesterday. I was like, so I'm about to get my bleed. So I get like I want to be by myself. I'm very happy with solitude during this time. But I can get like quite in my head sometimes. It used to be really bad, but the more that I have learned about like taking care of my body during this period of my cycle, yeah. The easier it has become, better it's become. So yesterday I went for a walk. I did a bush walk. It was like a 2 or 3 hour bush walk, and I left my phone at home, and oh my goodness, it really like, I was listening to a podcast the other day. Let me get it. I think like, so being present is the state of inspiration. Does that make sense? Yeah, we'll say that. I don't know.
Like it makes sense, because if you're out on a bushwalk by yourself and you have zero distractions, like you've got nothing stopping you from your thoughts coming in. Like you can't distract yourself from thinking anything. Like you can't stop thinking. You got no phone to like scroll through and read things and like watch TikTok, whatever you do.
Mm.
So all you have are your thoughts. So thoughts are just going to come regardless of you trying to control it or not.
Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I invite you all to try that. Go for a walk or a bush walk, or I love, getting out into nature. No distractions. Yeah, leave the phone at home, which can I'm like, oh my God, what if someone's got to reach me? I'm like, you'll be there. Yeah, it can wait. Yeah, literally, it can wait, Lianna. Yeah. 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 Were there any other tips or anything like that? I mean, I'm a big journal fan. I love, I think I speak about journaling in every single episode of this. Like, I just find there's something like about that energetic transference, like from like your mind onto paper, and you can see your thoughts and like, okay, like start to deconstruct this. Or was there anything else, that you use to build a deeper connection with yourself, build that self-awareness that we all need to be our higher selves?
Yeah, journaling is definitely a big one, but in terms of just general things you can do, is this is a bit like different to spiritual stuff, but it's more like being as logical as possible is something that I really stand by. So it's like, if you're unhappy with a certain aspect of your life, yeah, you can meditate on it, but also being very logical and really thinking about practical things you can do to change it is also very, very important, which a lot of people tend to miss.
Yeah.
Say, for example, like you hate your job. Like, yeah, you can just quit, but you're going to have no income. So that's really not a logical opinion, like possibility. You can talk back to your boss, but then you might lose your job because of that. So like, what options do you actually have? Cool. Can you write a new like resume or CV? And then you're like, oh, I'm not really confident in writing a new one because there's a lot of holes and stuff. But it's like, cool. Maybe you can reach out to someone who can help you build that. And it's like, what about interviewing? If you're not confident in that, you can start to like talk to someone that you know and do like a mock interview, for example. And it's like being very logical in your thinking, I think, is missed by a lot of people.
Yeah.
And that's something I think that a lot of people should start ironically thinking about.
Yeah. I love that. That's important because I'm so like we were discussing before, the archetypes. I'm a lover. So I like everything like with my heart. How am I feeling? How am I feeling? Everything's like I'm feeling into
everything.
Yeah.
So
but
like,
it's to yes, think logically like about things in your life. And I think that's using healthy masculine energy.
Yeah. So I'm like the other way around. So everything I do is based on logic. I'm like, does this make sense? And I'm like, what is it trying to do? I'm really just trying to like mentally dissect everything instead of like being emotionally connected, which is something I struggle with a little bit. So like so whilst I can hold space for people, what I tend to do is I really think logically about everything they say, and I really dissect it on a really logical level. And sometimes it really pisses people off, but it's really funny.
Can you give me an example of this? That's funny.
Just trying to think of something.
If you can't, that's fine.
Like, for example, like someone's sad because of a specific thing, and I'm like, yeah, but can't you just do this?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, like
I could, but like I'm still like sad over. I'm like, yeah, but you can just do this.
Yeah.
And it's like really back and forth.
Sorry, what was that?
And it's just like goes into like a really back and forth. Like I sometimes just block out the feeling because I'm really thinking about something way too much and like a lot of detail.
Yeah.
So it can be a little bit funny in that way.
Yeah. I think that's a good, way to look at things though.
Yeah.
Like,
which is why I find meditation really handy as well, because it helps me sort of get out of my head a little bit more, because it just, with meditation, I just let my thoughts run wild. So it just gets everything out of my system, which is really good.
Yeah. So during meditation, you're trying to like sit or like feel into your body more. You're trying to get out of your head.
yeah, that's essentially what I do. Is like I just sit, play music, and just if I have thoughts, I don't try and quiet them or block them out. I just let them run wild, and then once the thoughts are out, I just sit with the music and just sort of be in the music, if that makes sense.
Yeah. What because I resonate with some of what you're saying. Like I'm very like, yeah, like once someone like comes to me with like a challenge, I'm like, okay, do this. Like we have the challenge, this is what you do.
Yeah.
What I'm just curious what the plane. So I'm a how plane.
I'm a what?
A what?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Figured you're a how. Yeah.
So, oh really? What's that mean?
I just figure like you're very spiritual and like emotional, and I'm
Yeah.
like pure opposite. I'm
Yeah.
like, so you can feel into your emotion. I'm like, give me a book on emotions and I'll read it.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
What is the definition of happy?
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. I love that. I love that. Wow. Yeah. I think we hit everything. Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I'm happy with that.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Troy.
That's all right. Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Oh, and if you want to check out Troy's page, it's Troy Azzopardi. Do you want to spell that?
It's Troy.Azzopardi, I think. I'm pretty sure.
I'll put it in the show note thingy.
Pretty sure it's .Azzopardi. I don't know.
Yeah. Lovely.
I've got to like, there's not a lot of Troys out there, so it shouldn't be too hard to find.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.